Okay, Chair, when you're ready, we're now live on YouTube. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to Sidmouth and East Beach BMP Advisory Group meeting on the 23rd of January 2024. I'm your Chair, Councillor Jeff Young. I will also like to welcome anyone watching this meeting via the live streaming. In the event of a break in the internet connection, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. After 15 minutes, if we are not able to reconnect, we will consider the meeting adjourned and reconvene at a later date. If you wish to comment, please raise your electronic hand and wait to be called. We will now start the meeting by running through introductions of this advisory group meeting present. When you hear your name called, please confirm your name and who you are representing. So over to you, Debbie.
Well, let's start with you, Chair, shall we? Councillor Young.
Yeah, I'm Councillor Young. I'm portfolio holder for Coast Country Environment for East Devon District Council.
Okay, thank you. So in no particular order, I'm just going around on who I can see. Tom, can we go with you next, please?
Hello, yes, I'm the Engineering Projects Manager, East Devon District Council.
Thank you, Tom. Let's move on to Dave Rafferty, please.
Hi, I'm Dave Rafferty and I'm leading on the Chip Rocks Beach Ramp project in Sidmouth.
Thank you very much, Dave. Let's go on to Andrew Hancock next on my screen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andrew Hancock, Assistant Director for Street Scene at East Devon District Council.
Thank you, Andrew. So let's go now to Richard. Richard Greet.
Afternoon, Richard Greet, Head of Estimating for Kier.
Thank you very much, Richard. Can I move on to Adrian Parker, please?
Good afternoon, everybody. Adrian Parker, Devon and Cornwall Delivery Manager for Kier.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Let's move on to Mary. Good afternoon, Mary.
I'm Mary Walden-Hill. I'm here representing the Vision Group for Sidmouth.
Thanks very much, Mary. Let's move on to Colin. Good afternoon, Colin.
Good afternoon, Colin Boynton, representing the Sid Vale Association.
Thank you very much, Colin. Let's move on to Tony Birch. Good afternoon, Tony.
Hello, Debbie. Tony Birch. I'm here by invitation of the chairman, and I was the project manager for the early part of the BMP.
Thank you very much, Tony. Let's go next to Paul Grew. Good afternoon, Paul.
Hello, I'm Paul Grew. I represent the Cliff Road Action Group.
Thank you very much. Good to see you, Paul. Let's go to Ebb Tides. Good afternoon.
Afternoon. So I'm John Hammond and I'm a director from Ebb Tide Seaweeds.
I'm Tony Coulson. I'm also a director of Ebb Tide Seaweeds.
And founder.
Thank you very much. Good to see you both. Okay, on next to Andrew Yetton, please.
Oh, hi there. I'm Andrew Yetton. I'm an associate director for Atkins Realist, and I'm based in Exeter here.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Let's move on to Heather. Good afternoon.
Hi, Heather Coots from Atkins. I am the environment lead for our company under the collaborative delivery framework with the Environment Agency.
Thank you very much, Heather. Good to see you. Moving on to John Loudon, please.
Thank you, Debbie. I'm the ward member for Sidmouth Rural, which includes the houses just at the top of East Beach there.
Thank you, John. Let's go next to Thomas Aldridge. Good afternoon, Thomas.
Hi, Thomas Aldridge, Flood Risk Management Team at Devon County Council.
Thank you, Thomas. Let's move on to, who have I missed so far? Becky, please. Becky Elliott.
Good afternoon, everyone. I represent, I'm supporting Paul Grew on the Cliff Road Action Group, so I'm a resident of Cliff Road also.
Thank you, Becky. So let me see who else we haven't asked yet. Martin. Good afternoon, Martin.
Hi there, Martin Davis, Coastal Advisor at the Environment Agency.
Thank you, Martin. Good to see you. Moving on to Rob Skinner. Hello, Rob.
Hi there, Rob Skinner, Lead Ranger for the National Trust in East Devon.
Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Going on to now, Councillor Todd Olive. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Todd Olive, Assistant Portfolio Holder for Coast, Country and Environment at EDDC.
Thank you. And to Marianne, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Marianne Rickson, Ward Member for Sidmouth Sid Ford, no coastal border, and Portfolio Holder for Climate Action.
Thank you, Marianne. Good to see you. So next I have Sam Scriven. Good afternoon, Sam.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about the camera malfunction. It doesn't want to play today. So I am Principal Officer for World Heritage with the Jurassic Coast Trust.
Thank you, Sam. Good to see you, if only in pictorial form. So I think that is everyone on the call. If I haven't shouted out your name, please shout now. But I think that's all of us, Chair. So back to you. Thank you. Oh, let me give you the apologies I've had. Denise Ramsey from Natural England is unable to make it, as is Councillor Stuart Hughes. He gives his apologies. Thanks, Chair.
So did Becky, so did Chris Lockyer.
Oh, thank you. And Chris Lockyer, of course. He did let me know early doors. Thank you very much, Tony.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that. Before we go on, I've got an OpenReach van on my driveway at the moment, so I might lose internet. Could I ask Todd Olive to be Vice Chair on this meeting to step in if and when it's needed, if that is okay with the rest of the committee? Sorry to drop that on you, Todd.
If I spot he's gone, Todd, I'll let you know. Don't worry.
Right. Item 2, notes from the previous meeting held on 8th of March 2023. If anyone wishes to raise an issue with the minutes from the previous meeting, can you please raise your electronic hand now? And do I see any hands?
How do I put my hand up?
Tony's putting his hand up. Yes, Tony.
Where's the button for clicking on it? Any idea where the button is? Sorry, I need it for next time.
You might have to click on the more button if it's not at the top. You can click on more.
More.
You've got a Mac, haven't you?
Yeah, I got a Mac. Oh dear, sorry, I can't find. I'll try and find it later. Anyway, just
wave your hand when you want to speak,
yeah,
Tony.
Okay, thanks then. Just two minor ones. Item 46 at the end of the second paragraph said application would be refused. I think we said would probably be refused. I don't think we're certain. And the other one was the next page, item again 46, the last bullet point but 2, where it says an example was given of maintaining some interaction. Can you find it? The query I was raising at the time was, as an example, it was mentioned, what is meant by some interaction? An example was given of maintaining some interaction between the sea. And it's about trying to pin down some parameters that we've got to work to, but obviously we can do that as a detailed design. But I was just raising the point that we weren't clear at this stage what some of the parameters were.
So can we arrange those, rearrange that wording in the item?
Yeah. I've got a note, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. And I've got a hand up from Mary. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. On 46, it says that the OBC will be online when it goes. Is it now online? Or is that still something to come?
Tom, do you want to say that one?
Yes. No, it's not. It's on my list of things to do. I think I possibly even mentioned it in my presentation, is to get it online as soon as possible. Well, soon after this meeting, so that everyone can see what the final version was that was successfully submitted to the Environment Agency.
And 47 in the thing about the community ramp, it says MMO. What's MMO?
Probably best again for me to take that one. That's the Marine Management Organisation. So they.
It's just that we said that we would try and avoid acronyms without,
yes.
So like I get lost.
Sorry, Mary, that's probably my fault. I've noted it for next time.
Thank you. In 48, we've got a typo, which is community's wishes. It should be not wished. And the last thing down at the bottom, you've got councillors also present. Only most of us aren't councillors. So now I'm being picky.
Not at all, Mary.
I'll
I've made a note.
I've made a note. Myself again.
Thank you. I'll separate that out. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you for that. So that's item 2 all done with. Item 3, project update. I now hand over to Tom Buxton-Smith. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just loading up my PowerPoint presentation. Hopefully you can see that. I'm just going to pop it on full view if it allows me. Hopefully everyone can see a green screen with number 3 project update written on it.
Yeah, that's
perfect. Cool. So I guess onto the good news, which I'm sure you're all aware of, is that the project was successfully assured and approved by the Environment Agency. Obviously, we did a media release and made a bit of a song and dance about it, but fundamentally, the OBC was approved, which means that we can progress beyond the OBC. Appreciate we've been on the outline business case for several years, through various different funding mechanisms and design iterations. So now we can progress to the detailed design stage, and also allows us access to funding to develop the scheme forward. So all in all, fantastic news, and also sort of recognition that Sidmouth and East Beach deserve a scheme, and the fact that the economics and everything else has been checked and all stack up. It's really good news that we're eligible for significant and approved for significant funding from central government via the Environment Agency. Another thing is we've been calling the BMP for several years, and it's actually moved beyond that. So I think potentially after this meeting we'll start referring to BMS, which is a beach management scheme. This just fits better with the Environment Agency's programming, but also the description that the beach management plan was actually the document produced by Jacobs several years ago, and we're very much moving on to a scheme at this point in time. So just again, a bit further update is the OBC required 2 rounds of reviews, which unfortunately it's just time consuming. Questions get asked and we need to come up with the answers or make minor changes. So it was although no major changes, no major hurdles, it did take a while for it to get approved. But a big thank you to Martin and George, and also Ian from Haskoning, who have helped with the replies to the Environment Agency to appease them and make them obviously allow for approval and assurance. And as I mentioned previously, we plan to upload the final OBC with appendices onto our website soon. I'll see if I can get that done by the end of the week, as I just need to make sure I've got the absolute final document from Haskoning that's approved, to make sure there's a single document online, not an old one, and potentially issues arising from that. Another update, which some of you may not be aware of, is the project almost fell apart, for want of a better word. Nationally, and I do stress this is nationally, the national programming team for the Environment Agency wanted to remove in-program funding from Sidmouth and East Beach and push it back to the next currently unfunded project window, which essentially would have delayed our project despite getting assurance, would have delayed any possible start of any spending of money until 2027, which clearly would have been it's bad news for everyone, bearing in mind we've made some good progress lately. There was quite a lot of effort behind the scenes, so a really big thanks out to local Environment Agency staff. Simon Jupp MP got involved, and also our members at East Devon and officers writing letters and representing East Devon to make sure that the funding got reinstated for this programme. So yeah, what could have been a very bad news story was successfully turned around, and therefore we were able to progress the project as planned without having to wait for the next funding program. And obviously part of the reason which I guess the scheme was considered for delaying was lack of progress, which I know that many people have been involved with the BMP for many years. It has been a slow burn, but of late we've made good progress with agreement on the OBC direction, sign off, and so it was somewhat gutting to be told this at this stage. And obviously, as part of that is we want to prove that this project will make quick progress, it will deliver, and push forward. We're not going to sit on this. Now we've got the funding and new opportunities for developing the detailed design stage. We really want to push this forward. So as funding was approved, we approached Atkins and Kier, who are on the call today, and we wanted them to help deliver well, initially a proposal so that we can assess to deliver the project. In previous BMPs we've discussed procurement and commerciality, and given the desire to progress with work and design quickly, using the Environment Agency's preferred suppliers via their framework seemed a sensible way to go to ensure certainty delivery to the Environment Agency, but also expediting getting detailed design, detailed consultation and modelling to deliver the project as soon as practical. There's also been via Martin some approach to Natural England and Jurassic Coast Trust for further engagement with Atkins, because clearly there needs to be more talks and more consideration for any design moving forward. And we've also, to help myself out, we're also considering an external project manager to aid delivery. Obviously we're wary East Devon have a lot of big projects on, and we don't want this it needs the time and attention to keep it moving. So we are considering that, and obviously by the next beach management plan meeting we will have an update on what that might be. I was just going to go through, I appreciate we have a few new faces, so I wanted to go through very briefly what the OBC was that was approved. It's known as option 6, and I've just got 2 slides to keep it simple, but obviously making aware this was, we had to put a proposal through for the outline business case, but we made it very clear there was subject to a lot of checks and changes, and potential redesign. But we had to obviously present something that was costed and would work. And so this was the proposal that's gone in, which is 120-metre groin on East Beach with beach recharge. So this is working from east to west. Right to left on the screen as you look at it. 120-metre groin at East Beach with beach recharge, improved slipway access and amendments to the training wall if required, raising of the splash wall at the eastern end to resist overtopping from southeasterly storms. Then we would have beach recharge on main town beach and a rock island of some description, of some orientation, of some size, one or more, in the town area. There'd also be some amendments to the splash wall, not raising it to the 1 meter level as was previously touted. So this was delaying any raising to a future date, but potentially upgrading the foundations to allow for future raising. And just a side profile again, just to show how much beach we would hope to bring back. We're going to move on to item 4, so I'll just close this down. Does anyone have any questions on the update before I pass over to Atkins and Keir to introduce themselves?
Could I just ask, I didn't quite catch who you said Atkins and Keir were. Did you say they worked with the Environment Agency?
Yes, I mean, I think Atkins and Keir will let you know their commercial relationship with the Environment Agency in their slides. But essentially, the Environment Agency have a it's called the Collaborative Delivery Framework, and Atkins and Keir are the consultant and designer for the Southwest hub, which is essentially the Environment Agency's preferred supplier for their major construction works. So Atkins and Keir have obviously tendered and been appointed to be on the framework, and we, East Devon, are signed up to this. We are in contract with them on another project, and we are seeking to, all being well, appoint to help deliver the scheme. So yeah, hopefully that's answered your question. If not, their slides hopefully will.
Thank you very much for that, Tom. I'd just like to add more thank yous to Tony Birch and Chris Lockyer for helping to be our critical eyes on the document as it went backwards and forwards, and all the checks and work they did on that. So just like to make a note of that. So back to you, Tom.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I will hand over. Item 4 is the introduction to Keir and Atkins. So I believe Adrian's certainly driving the slides, but I'll let them introduce them. Well, let them deliver the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Councillor. I'm just trying to share our slides, so bear with me. Can someone confirm that our slide has appeared?
Yep, that's there, Adrian.
Wonderful.
Perfect.
Thank you. So yeah, hopefully, good to understand who you all are, to be introduced to you. Now we'll try and explain who we are a bit more, and take on board some of your questions, and hopefully we do address them as we go through. So thank you. Right. So just to reintroduce ourselves, just in case you didn't catch it at the beginning, my name is Adrian Parker. I'm the Devon and Cornwall Delivery Manager for Keir under the Collaborative Delivery Framework for the EA. I'm driving the slides today because our colleagues from Atkins are having to join Zoom via their phone, so it was more convenient for me to do it. Richard Greet, our Head of Estimating, is also joining me from Keir. And Phil Ramsey is our Framework Director for the Collaborative Delivery Framework. He unfortunately isn't able to join us today. So Heather, would you like to just remind people who's here from Atkins?
Sure. So from Atkins today, we have myself and Andy Yetton. So as I said briefly in the introductions, I am the environmental lead for Atkins under the Collaborative Delivery Framework. So I head up or I oversee the environmental aspects and some of the planning aspects of the projects that we deliver for the Environment Agency. The other face that you can see on the slide who isn't here today, similar to Phil, is Andrew Waring, who's our framework manager. He had to send his apologies for today, but we do also have Andrew Yetton on the line today, who is one of our associate directors and has been working closely with Tom on another scheme.
So just to recap, I think Tom's already made it clear what we're here to talk about. We'll tell you about the collaborative delivery framework, about us, so Atkins and Kia, the partners for the Southwest Hub for the EA. We'll go into our experience, so our background, our CV then of projects as companies. Then Atkins will talk a little bit about the detailed design process that they would follow, and then we'd like to talk about your scheme, so the Sidmouth and East Beach management scheme, as we understand it, as what went into the OBC, but actually also what your aspirations are and what your objectives are from the scheme. So that's the agenda. So to start, I will just quickly explain what the collaborative delivery framework is. So I've got a black bar across the top of my screen, but hopefully you don't, so you can see the titles. So the collaborative delivery framework is the EA's flood and coastal risk management framework for delivery of all of their flood and coast projects nationally. So it's a 4+4 year framework. It commenced in 2019, and a 4-year extension was awarded in April last year. So we're just in the first year of the 4-year extension. So it's broken into 6 regions, and obviously we're the Southwest. So the design partner for the Southwest is Atkins Realis, and Kia are the contractor. So we're the sole delivery partners in the Southwest under that framework for flood and coastal risk management projects. Now it's a government framework, so it's available for all local authorities, risk management authorities to also use, should they choose to deliver their own projects. And we are working for a number of different local authorities. As Tom said, we're already working with East Devon, who have signed up to the framework to allow them to award contracts under it if as and when they choose. So the scheme value typically under the framework is anywhere from 500,000 up to 50 million. With in the Southwest, really, we are talking generally 2 to 20 million pound kind of projects. They're call-off contracts, so signing up to the framework in itself doesn't oblige anyone to award a contract, but within that there's the ability to raise call-off contracts, either a professional services contract for a consultant for the design, or an engineering and construction contract, which is a construction contract to go and deliver work, and that's using the new engineering contract version 4. So the framework, the criteria then that the EA tendered for the framework originally, it covers much more than just cost. There's a big interest in sustainability and decarbonisation. There's a lot of work at the moment helping the EA achieve their net zero carbon goal by 2030. We've also got key performance indicators through the framework for things like health and safety, diversity, and information management. Probably less important to yourselves. So just going on to who we are then. So I'll let Heather, is it you or Andy going to talk about Atkins Reality?
It's me, Adrian. Thank you. So generally we have approximately 180 people working on CDF at any one time. That number does extend quite significantly depending on our project requirements. But specifically, and I just jumped to the bottom, in Exeter, we have an office here. We've got approximately 100 plus people. And a good number of those staff are actually working on CDF at the moment. Generally, if you look at our experience, we've got a great knowledge of the Southwest in terms of flood defence. We've worked at Sheldon, Teignmouth, Starcross and Dawlish Warren. And really, our expertise is across the board with Fallujah and coastal works as much as planning and marine consent. My colleague Heather, who very much be able to explain more about the environmental assessments as well. But we also look at economic appraisal as well, so early OBCs. Adrian, would you like to carry on, please?
Yeah, sure. So similar to Atkins, we've got a really good local base. We've got 130 staff when we last checked working on the collaborative delivery framework at the moment in the Southwest. We've got a longer than 25-year relationship with the Environment Agency, delivering flood and coastal risk management projects in the Southwest. And we aren't here just to deliver the construction projects. We, under all of the projects we deliver for the Environment Agency, assist right from the concept design stage, and we work alongside Atkins, providing early contractor involvement, early supplier engagement throughout the outline and detailed design stages, help whether that's with consultation with key stakeholders, budget pricing, or bringing in specialist advice from our supply chain, really. So our principal office is also in Exeter. We've got a good number of Southwest-based staff, and we've got the ability as a large contractor to draw on experience from other areas of our business. Okay, so now we are going to go into some examples. So here's just a selection of pictures of schemes we've been working on over the last few years, mainly under the framework, although we've also got Hinckley, Point C, Coastal Defence Wall on here. But pretty much all of the other pictures are schemes we delivered under the collaborative delivery framework in recent years. And here's just a selection of projects, some coastal schemes and fluvial projects delivered under the framework, but also projects we've been delivering for other local authorities, risk management authorities across, well, nationally, but I think even internationally, some of the projects. So we obviously haven't got time to talk about all these today, so we're just going to pick a selection to give you some examples of schemes that we think are relevant to your project here at Sidmouth, really. So I think the first of which is Dungeness. So over to you, Heather.
Well, thanks, Adrian. Yeah, so this is a scheme that Atkins was involved with for several years, where we see some parallels with Sidmouth, not complete parallels, but certainly some. So there was a strategy for this project, which was located on the Kent coast down at Dungeness. And the strategic option proposed protection of the beach, which was an eroding shingle beach, using a 1.4 kilometre rock revetment combined with a groin field and extensive shingle recharge, combined with some embankment raising and outfall relocation. And the reason we see some parallels here with Sidmouth is because this was a highly sensitive site for a number of reasons. So every kind of environmental designation that you can imagine was present here. It also backed onto a nationally important MOD training range. So obviously nationally important infrastructure there, and also the Dungeness nuclear power station is located at the end of the peninsula. So the importance of this scheme was that there were 14,500 homes at risk within the wider flood cell, which was Romney Marsh. If this frontage was to breach in an extreme event, all of those properties would have been flooded through the low-lying land on this peninsula. However, the site's also internationally important for its geomorphology and its habitats, and Natural England were extremely opposed to any hard defences that would interrupt the natural evolution of that shingle peninsula. So this required extensive consultation and a very sort of careful and ongoing design process to come to a solution and take us through the habitats regulations assessment and the provision of compensatory habitat that was needed to get the scheme through to planning, which was successfully achieved in 2021. So if you can move on to the next example, please, Adrian. So the next one, just wanted to talk about briefly, just another offshore breakwater scheme, which we worked on. This again was in the southeast of England. So this was an offshore breakwater scheme for a private developer, where there was as you can see on the top image, a very, very large caravan park and leisure site that was at risk. So the owners of that caravan park commissioned Atkins to design a beach management, beach protection scheme that would reduce the risk of flooding to the caravan park. So we undertook breakwater design. There was numerical modelling done for this project in combination with HR Wallingford, flood risk assessment, and all of the usual consenting and planning processes that go alongside that. So lots of landscape visualizations, environmental impact assessment, another habitats regulations assessment, and then we took that scheme through planning and marine licensing as well successfully. And on the bottom image, you can see the completed scheme from a different angle. Okay, move on, Adrian.
Thank you, Heather. So this is a project, Sandy Lane. This is in Barbados. This was completed by our team in the UK. And again, very similar to the other projects, it included breakwater design, numerical modelling, physical modelling. Obviously, the distance could propose a problem, but you know, we worked really, really closely with the client, really understood the issues at hand. So again, that fed into the environment impact assessment, the planning, the marine licensing. So at the top is an extract from the model, and then the image below is the finished actual product. If you go on to the next slide, please.
Andy, am I right that this included physical modelling conducted by HR Wallingford?
It did, yes. We did have physical modelling as well with Wallingford, yeah.
I think that is the physical model in the top image, isn't it?
I believe it was, Heather. Yeah, sorry, I think I've moved on now.
Yeah, that's fine, Adrian. Thank you. So obviously the schemes that we've showed previously were more offshore works. Sorry, Adrian, I think you've gone back.
No, I know, Andy. It's slow to respond. It's back again at my end. Hopefully,
No
is it
problem. IT problems. No problem. Excellent. Thank you. So obviously the schemes that we've looked at so far have been offshore with some coastal. This is more, shall we say, civils elements. So this is Starcross and Cockwood Harbour. This is across the Exe. What we have here is a historic harbour, issues of flooding. And in essence, it was a replacement and topping up of the existing wall. There was some refurbishment of that, topping up, strengthening. What you're seeing here was a lot of innovation work. So the top image was an interactive 3D model that you could actually talk through, members of the public and councillors as well, explain what we're doing, and which was, sorry, well, that's not me, which was really, really helpful. And then also things like interacting with the public. So the view on the top right-hand corner was the wall and the seating area was all really sympathetically designed through discussions with the local businesses, the pubs, residents. What we ended up with was an award-winning scheme. I think we won Project of the Year with the ICE in 2019. And it's a project that we're incredibly proud of. Go to the next slide, please.
Yep, we'll do.
Okay, so it'll be me again. So basically, this is a very similar type scheme, but a little bit more coastal, shall we say, in the fact that Sidmouth Point seawall was suffering with quite severe erosion on the wall face, and that was causing the existing walkway to fail. That walkway was protecting the car park, which was behind, so it was quite an integral asset for Sidmouth. So the design was completed in 2016, construction 2017. That was 200 meters of sheep pile wall, pile cap, concrete walkway, and then some of the old historic stones that were won from the site were set into the walkway just to retain some of the heritage that was there. And actually, to add to the complexity of the site, the ground was quite weak here, so there was a lot of ground anchors that needed to be included with the design. This really made the construction quite challenging because obviously with the tide being so near to the working area, we had a very, very small window of opportunity for construction. So it was a real challenge right the way through. Again, please, Heather.
Yeah, so this is just a project that we wanted to touch on briefly. This was one of the first projects that we worked on with the Environment Agency under the Collaborative Delivery Framework, and was really looking at better means of communication of coastal change with local communities. So this was looking ahead at how the beach at Bude would change given predictions of sea level rise between present day and up to 100 years in the future. So this visual model was created with our creative design team, and was really used just as a really highly effective communication tool to try and demonstrate visually to people how the coast might look in the future. So it's just another example that we wanted to briefly touch on.
So this is a scheme that some of you may have heard of. It's the Exmouth Flood Defence Scheme, but not too far down the road. This was completed a couple of years ago now. But obviously there's a lot of similarities here. So a lot of, if you look at the top right hand corner, we have a flood wall that's been built into the existing Moulton Crescent properties here. The design was done very sympathetically to try and match the heritage nature of the town and what people know and what they understand. And also we really wanted to try and hold out that look and sort of not make it look too new. Lots of rock armor was in place. And obviously, in terms of the sea frontage, there was 660 meters of seawall that needed an element of work doing to it for drainage improvements. But around that, we had floodgates, we had sheep pile defences, there was significant rock armour. But in addition to that, it was all constructed around the tourist seasons over multiple months. And we really tried to use low carbon concrete where possible, modern methods of construction to speed up the construction process, but also to make the disruption to the public and the local people less. So it's a fantastic project that's really, I feel, turned out incredibly well. We go on to the next slide, please. So obviously, along with that was the consultation. We did significant consultation with lots of stakeholders, be it the Moulton Crescent residents, be it the public, Natural England, but lots of feedback from the public as well, in what they wanted, what their aspirations was, what were they hoping to get from the project itself. And we feel that really did manifest itself in the end scheme. Go on to the next slide, please.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I was just checking time-wise. Tom, we've only got until what time how much longer have we got? I feel like we've had 20 minutes already.
Yes, I'm just trying to think. I having seen your slides, I think it'd be good to obviously do a bit on the design going forward. Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Thank you. In which case, we've got some more examples, but we don't need to show them all. I just wanted to acknowledge we've also, so Exmouth, really local, Lower Otter Restoration Project is a scheme we've just finished before Christmas. Been there for a couple of years. It's been 10 years in the making. Really interesting scheme just down the coast from you. We've also then had a few examples where we've recently had a lot of rock armour going in on the Somerset coast. So some emergency works at Blue Anchor for the local authority there, followed very closely for a fairly large scheme for the EA, I think literally 3.5 kilometres down the coast. Economies of scale, completing a big scale scheme for them there while we had the supply chain engaged. And delivered very quickly. If anyone's interested, there are YouTube videos about these schemes. So where do we get to? And there was a little R&D project at Newlyn that we completed last year with lots of interesting low carbon and sustainability credentials, all things we could talk about if anyone was interested. But I will hand back to yourselves, Heather, Andy, to talk about the design process that you follow.
Sure, thanks, Adrian. Yeah, so just going to touch briefly on a sort of high-level overview of how we foresee the design process going forward, based on some of the experience that we've outlined previously. So obviously we have the OBC with an option outline design. So going forwards, we would like to just have a look over that outline design process. We know that there are some elements that aren't fixed, some elements that are uncertain. So we'd be looking to undertake a review of that really just to confirm what the direction of travel is for that option going forward. And as part of that, we would certainly seek to re-engage with all of the key stakeholders right from the outset to understand everyone's concerns and the aspirations for the scheme going forwards. As part of that as well, obviously there is an environmental scoping process that has been gone through for the OBC. So we will just look again at that just to review any changes and confirm that scoping process going forwards. And then I think really the next steps, taking it through from outline to detailed design, will be informing that design through numerical modelling, possibly through physical modelling, and then alongside that, we would undertake all of the necessary environmental assessments that would support future planning, marine licensing and consenting for the project. Throughout that process, there is always a feedback back into the detailed design, just to, as we go through ongoing consultation processes, as we start to look at the environmental assessments, we will always feed back the results of that to ensure that we deliver the most, the most sustainable scheme and something that delivers outcomes for the local community as well. Once those processes are sort of have reached a conclusion, then we'll be ready to submit the final consents, which we anticipate will be, as I say, planning and marine licensing going forwards into construction. So just a few thoughts around the steps that are going to inform that process. Obviously, an optioneering process, and we'd be looking to have a stakeholder and advisory group that feeds into all those processes going forwards. And then alongside that, we'll be working with Kier, who will be looking at availability of resources to support the construction stage, obviously pricing, and then looking at consultation materials as well, such as visualizations, to support consultation and landscape assessments prior to going into planning. And then I'm going to hand over to Andy. If you just move the slides on, please, Adrian.
I will. Yep.
Thanks,
Andy.
Thank you, Heather. So this slide really is a representation of the current option 6 from the recently submitted OBC. And as we understand, it is the current preferred option. So what I would like to say, we understand fully it's not the final design. So the exact location, number, orientation of the breakwaters, etc., they will all be looked at thoroughly at the detailed design stage. And that also includes the length and height of the wall raising and likely raising, how that would be potentially raised in the future. That will also be looked at as well. Any improvements to each beach solution which may benefit the scheme as well, and we'll be looking at how that may affect the heritage site status as well. So in essence, and if we're going over old ground, I do apologise. Our understanding is that Sidmouth and the East Beach are at risk of flooding significantly from flooding from a coastal erosion. So the cliffs at East Beach are eroding, which puts homes at risk from falling into the sea, and this poses additional threats. So that includes cliff retreats and the effects of the mouth of the River Sid, but also Sidmouth is at risk of flooding from the sea itself. So the existing rock islands, the beach, the seawall, the splash wall, they offer protection, but ultimately it's climate change that is causing that to that effect to be risen even more. And obviously with the increase of southerly and southeasterly storms, that risk is made even worse. So the flooding in the town would be significant, with water coming over that splash wall and then draining into the centre of the town. Tom, if I get any of this wrong, please do say. So please. So that's sort of what we understand the problem is. The actual constraints, we understand the importance of the heritage of the town. It's an extremely popular town for tourists. It's got fantastic beaches, the buildings, the setting, the amenities, but also it's so close to the Jurassic Coast World Heritage status. And obviously the cliffs as well. They've multiple designations. So whatever we do has to be incredibly sympathetic to that. So I think that's the key word we want to make sure we understand the concerns, and we really do want to listen and be sympathetic to everyone's thoughts, really. In terms of the option, our understanding is that the design philosophy is that the breakwater and beach will provide frontline defense for essentially reducing wave energy. The design will then build and help keep a healthy beach, which ultimately we can do this by construction of new breakwaters, which would help the beach and sort of reduce the waves itself. So there's lots of options at the moment that will be looked at. What we obviously want to do at the moment is provide you with the reassurance. We understand the constraints and the problems, but ultimately we're open-minded to all options, and we just really want to work with you to get a good solution for everyone. So I think that's the last slide, I believe, Adrian, is it not?
It is, Andy. Yes.
So I suppose if there's any questions or any concerns or anything, we're obviously happy to answer.
Right, if we can go back to the main screen and now see if there's anyone who's got questions. And the first question that I have got is Paul Gruhl. Over to you, Paul.
You're on mute, Paul.
Right, I think that's better.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you.
All right. The Environment Agency was probably right when it said that there was slow progress. We've been going since 2011. The BMP was supposed to take a year and a half and cost £100,000, and actually took 4 years and cost something like £400,000. So the real question is, how do we ensure that we stick to whatever timetable we now have so that we can actually have a scheme in place in the next 3 years or so?
Who wants to take that tricky question? Tom, do you want to come in on that one?
I can do to a degree. Yes, I mean, a lot of us know of all the various issues we've had with the BMP over the years. My experience only dates from 2019, but fully appreciate there was a lot of work and various delays and additional costs before that. I mean, my next slides will go into kind of a short-term program, which will then define the long-term program. But I guess Atkins and Keir need to are being asked to put a proposal together, which will include a program of when do we think these will certain things will be delivered by, and obviously if that's the route we go and push on, there will be contractual responsibility to meet those deadlines going forward. So it's subject to other risks such as planning and other consultations. So being in the detailed design phase with an approved budget gives more certainty of delivery going forward. But until we've had chance for Atkins and Keir to look at the program and when's realistic, because unfortunately talking to the MMO and other bodies can take a long time. I mean, Andy or Adrian may want to add something to that.
I mean, I would agree with you. I mean, Tom, I mean, these things obviously take time, and once we're on that design process and we have a program that we're working to, obviously we'll be able to give you a lot more certainty, Paul, on development and how things are moving. And obviously what we are keen to do is increase those discussions with stakeholders and yourselves. So obviously there's an opportunity for us to talk a bit more frequently than obviously maybe as it is at the moment. So I'd certainly encourage us to do more talking, and if we, when we do, we can obviously sit down and look at program and things that we can show you what we're looking at. Would you agree with that, Tom? Is that a practical approach?
Yes. We're in obviously a slight period between consultants appointed. We have no consultant appointed at the moment, and in due course we'll have your proposal, which will give us more certainty of timings and as you discussed. So yeah, I think that, I mean, obviously Paul can come back to us and ask if he if that's answered him enough or likewise.
Yes, thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing your short-term program in the next section, Tom.
Thank you, Paul. Next question that I've got is Adrian Parker. Adrian.
It was less of a question. Richard had his hand up briefly, so I thought he might have been adding to the answer for John or Paul. Paul. Paul's question. I mean, yeah, just to reinforce. Obviously, Andy is thinking about the next steps. Yes, we need to put a program together for delivery of the design, and it's a tricky one to go through all the different consultation stages. But all I can do to offer some kind of assurance is that the collaborative delivery framework is here to do exactly this. I mean, we're taking projects for the Environment Agency from concept right through to delivery. We've successfully delivered a long list of projects already in the last 4 years. What we can offer is a route to do that without necessarily putting any further stops in along the way. So whereas to date this sounds like this program has you've progressed a bit and then there seems to be a bit of a delay, you have the opportunity now to progress this through design into delivery without any certainly other kind of contract procurement delays then.
Thank you, Adrian, for that. That does help. Next question I've got is from Councillor John Loudon. Over to you, John.
Sorry, I'm just making a note of what Adrian just said then, so apologies. Right, I'm going to come in on the back of what Paul said a minute ago, and you would expect me to as the ward member. As a layperson, I take what we're trying to achieve here to be in two parts in the main. We've got the East Beach aspect of all of this to one side of the River Sid, and then we've got the main town beaches, if you like, to the other side. And I don't know how this all configures when you come to deliver it. But if there's any way of prioritizing the East Beach part before the town, and I know it's all important, but we've got people's properties sat precariously at the top of East Beach, whereas at the moment we don't have, fingers crossed, any properties or businesses at immediate risk in the town. I wouldn't want to go on public record as saying I put one part of Sidmouth higher than the other, although I accept that I'm now saying it very publicly. But I do have to recognise Paul and his neighbours' anxieties and patience thus far. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for that. Just to add that East Beach is supposed to be closed to the public, so there's a lot less restrictions on East Beach than the rest of the shoreline, which will have to be considering the holiday trade and everything else with that. So it's something that will be, yeah, it's all
on a death wish, Jeff.
Yeah. So no, it's all within the scope that we'll be looking at, and now if hopefully now it's a massive project, so now we can look at that certainly. Is there anyone else with a question? Looks like not, so we go on to
sorry, Chair,
David Rafferty's got his hand up.
Oh.
Hi, sorry, I couldn't work out how to put the little flag up. I've got a Mac as well. It's about the Chiprock Beach ramp project, obviously, and we know we've got to raise the funds ourselves for the actual construction stage. And thanks to Simon Knock from Kier, we've got a really good idea of how much that's going to cost. But it's to do really with the design and the kind of the consultation stages that come before that. And I guess once the consultants are appointed, I just need some advice as to how we can liaise with them so that we can benefit from the economies of scales through that design and timetabling process.
Thank you, Dave, for that. Tom, do you want to take that one?
I can do. Maybe I'm not completely best placed, but yes, as I think we've discussed before, is it would be evidently sensible to include the community ramp project within the works that we're doing. I mean, certainly from construction point of view, economy of scales, but also the consultation, that it would fit with everything we're doing. We're not having to go to the MMO twice or other statutory bodies. So yeah, that would fit. Obviously, we just don't want to be lost in the design. It is kind of a separate project, but clearly, yeah, it does make sense to include it. I don't know if Andy or Adrian want to add anything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about that element, but obviously, if it's close by, I'm sure things like surveys can be very easily included within our survey scopes. Utility surveys, GPR surveys, meeting you on site, so we can. I think those conversations can be very easily incorporated. Obviously, that's down to scope and would need to be agreed with Tom as our client, but absolutely welcome to, happy to talk to you, happy to talk to Tom with you, and we can understand what the problem is and how we may be able to help.
Thank you.
I think the little knowledge I do have of it, Simon works for me, so I'm kind of a little bit aware of the scheme. I think it'd be quite a straightforward exercise. Once Atkins and ourselves are in contract, then it's a quick add-on. It's not, you're getting all your economy from getting into contract now. That bit's straightforward and should be, like you say, add it on and quickly deliver it.
Thank you, Richard and Andrew, for that. Have we got any other questioners? I'm hoping that everyone can got their questions through. We go on to item 5 now, the short-term program. Back to you, Tom, I take it.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just hopefully firing up on my machine. I think you can now see number 5, short-term program. So
yeah, that's up, Tom. Thanks.
Perfect. So it's now pressing the button. There we go. So there's not much to this at the moment. We spoke to Atkins and Keir at a project board meeting not too long ago, and agreed to invite them to make a proposal to us based on the scope. So that was drafted by the subgroup. We've given that to them, and obviously Keir and Atkins are going away to work on a proposal, and we want some further input into that going forward. Because a project board, the entering a contract is commerciality. The project board would make the decision under its delegation to appoint Atkins or Keir to deliver the scope or not. So, we're keen to progress this as soon as possible, but obviously we need to give Atkins and Keir due time to come up with a sensible proposal that will give the scheme the best possible chance of delivering the outcomes that we all want. As I mentioned before, what their proposal will include a high-level program to give an indication of when we expect to be going out for detailed design period, public consultation, planning permission, and obviously an aim to get construction on site. Sorry, not much to the short-term program because it's very short. But does anyone have any questions on that before we move on to item 6?
I've got Tony Birch with a question.
Yep.
You're on mute, Tony.
Right. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tom, could I just clarify? First bullet point, you're awaiting a proposal from Atkins. Is that a proposal to revamp the scope?
It's that's an element to it. It is to consider the scope with what's there and make amendments to it to make sure it's deliverable. But obviously, clearly, we need to check it's got everything we need in it. But also, it is the proposal to enter a contract, because we obviously financially we need to know what we're signing up to, and the proposal based on the scope.
So, okay, so it's a proposal to deliver the scope once it's been approved.
Can I
Sorry,
interject, Tom?
Yeah, please do.
Might help to cast your mind back, Tony, to our project board meeting where we discussed engaging the CDF.
Yeah.
And whether we would take Atkins and Keir forwards for the whole thing, design and build, or whether it was just design. And we decided to split it out, and we put an email across to Atkins and Keir, didn't we, to work up the scope proposal. So as Tom said, we can get an idea of their understanding of the scheme, what solutions to the problems they might come up with, how they'll deliver it, and what the cost will be. And then it will be for us to decide if we're happy with that, to engage that initial section ahead of engaging the full contract with them for the build phase.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I do remember that, but I'm still not clear, because the scope that was produced is a draft for polishing up and improving, which I thought we were going to do in liaison with Atkins. That's what I thought. Again, going back to what Andy said, that's what we agreed at the board meeting. I'm a bit confused, because the scope's in draft and it needs to be finalized.
Yes, that's part of the process. The draft scope needs to be updated, and to make sure it's deliverable. So Atkins and Keir have the draft scope with the view to amend it so that we can obviously agree the scope for them to deliver. Okay.
So will that redrafting of the scope, or that updating of the scope, be done in liaison with E7?
Yes. It won't be in isolation. I'm hoping there will be some to and fro. We obviously clearly need to be in agreement with the scope that we want Atkins and Keir to deliver.
Okay. So do you see E7 working with Atkins on the redraft or the updating of the scope before it's put out for more general consultation and discussion?
Yes, I'd like to think we would have a final scope, not in a draft form, that we'd be able to share with the advisory group, also the subgroup, just to check that we've got everyone's concerns or wants or desires in it, and making sure that we as best as we can, we are trying to get a deliverable scope to please people.
I appreciate that. I just wanted to know the mechanism for achieving that it's going to be done in liaison with E7, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Tom and Andrew, for answering that one. Have I got any more questions before we move on to the next item? No more questions. So if we can now move on to item 6, presentation from Ebbtide on Sidmouth Seaweed Biosphere Marine Nature Reserve. That's a mouthful.
Yeah, I'm going to try and share my screen. Let's see if that works. Can everyone see the screen?
Not yet.
Oh, do I have to do that first? And then do it?
We had it good earlier.
Hang on. Window. that one share?
Yes, we can see it now.
Love technology. Okay, everyone see that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so hello, we're Ebtides. Our company, so we were founded in 2016 by Tony here, based on the back of developing a range of seaweeds as sort of food ingredients and additives. We have a license to harvest along 5 miles of the coast. So that's from Budleigh Salterton all the way through to Sidmouth, and that's our sort of area that we're allowed to harvest from with consent from or licensing from Crown Estate and consent from Natural England. We picked up an environmental award in 2022 by the Excellent Living Award. We picked up some national awards as well with our sort of various products that we make. And I suppose the seaweed farming idea, there was a proposal and some crowdfunding done in 2017. When we looked at putting together a seaweed farm back then, before seaweed became sort of quite a big thing that it is now, or sort of more people starting farms up. And I think the biggest thing that always put us back was what do you do with the product once you've got it? So it was looking for that outlet. So we came up with an interesting concept this last year, and that was the idea if we put several technologies together. So that's not only the idea of seaweeds on ropes, but also bringing in the idea of an artificial reef and planting seagrass as well, that actually we can create something that will actually reduce wave activity to shore, and the seaweeds can actually be farmed sustainably rather than just harvest the whole rope. Which is something they're doing in America at the moment. So it's about having an area which will reduce the wave activity. So our proposed location is off the eastern side of the town. It's about a mile off the coast at the furthest, on the left-hand side, which is about half a mile from the sewage outlet pipe, if anyone knows what that is. And it's angled in towards the coast at 45 degrees. So ideally, it sort of protects those southeasterlies that cause quite a lot of damage when they do happen, certainly on the sort of the cliffside. The biosphere is in 4 parts. So the first part would be to actually lay the buoys and hang the ropes, and that's where the kelp grows. Kelp grows at about 1 metre a year on the ropes. So we wouldn't harvest or touch those ropes for at least 2 to 3 years, and then would phase or sort of rotate through when the seaweed is basically given a haircut. We'd also then combine that with laying sort of artificial reefs. So the artificial reefs we're currently looking at are fruit trees. There's been a lot of work being done with one of the people we're working with to sort of show that those sort of natural artificial reefs are really good for growing sort of the local environment. Planting seagrass. So working with Plymouth University and the Sound over there. So we would actually be using their stocks of seagrass and bringing those over here to Sidmouth to put into our environment. And then one of the other things that was suggested by one of the organisations was to actually lay in the bivalves as well, because that will help with water quality. So those 4 things actually work very sort of synergistically together. It's a lovely relationship between reefs, seagrass and bivalves to sort of have that environment. They grow very nicely together. But the main thing for the reduction in the wave activity would be the hanging kelp. With the kelp in particular, when the waves hit that, it then pushes the energy downwards more. So that's when the reefs and the seagrass and the valves, everything else would sort of help reduce that activity coming into the coastline. So I should have said, I mean, the work that's been done previously in other countries. So by having a seaweed farm or a seaweed marine conservation area, we can reduce wave activity by at least 40% coming into the coast. And that will have a significant impact on the force and the size of the waves hitting the sort of the coastal side of the town. So advantages of the seaweed biosphere. It's looking to reduce wave activity by at least 40% coming into the sort of the coast. It works out as 7 hectares of marine conservation. So that is about 7 football pitches worth of conservation. It's very, very carbon negative, and the acquisition, which can then be used for carbon offsetting as well. So it's a green, soft coastal engineering solution. You've also got then local employment. So the local fishermen will be able to help us to manage the area. And it's all about rewilding the seabed. So there's some very big projects going on in West Sussex, for example, where they're letting the kelp restore itself. and that is then naturally protecting the coastlines rather than hard engineering. And obviously then, because of what we're doing with the biosphere, increase the sort of the marine stocks and diversity, so that helps the local fishermen, the local fish stocks and populations. And then one of the nice things as well with seaweed is it does produce cleaner water as well, so it takes out nitrogen from the water, plus you've also got the bivalves, which will also clean out the water as well. So there's lots of benefits there to having sort of the biosphere put in place. So there's some examples. So the Kelp Recovery Project in West Sussex, the Environmental Agency have got a lot of projects at the moment going on with Coastal Flood and Innovation Programme. Marine Conservation Society have also been doing a lot of work on stakeholders and their interest in it. And then the one at the bottom is a Welsh seaweed farm. So you can actually sort of see what those buoys look like when they're put down. Very much where we're looking at 7 hectares. The one down in Cornwall, I think, is 150 hectares they're looking at, which is huge. And I can see why the locals will be quite upset about having that many buoys that close to town, and the disruption it caused to sort of things like sailing, water sports. Whereas 7 hectares is not a massive area, but it will have a significant impact on coastal protection. Currently, we work with quite a lot of companies and other people. So Abby Bartram, she's our friendly marine biologist who works for Ramboll. Ramboll are a offshore wind farm company, so they're putting a lot of the offshore wind farms at the moment. And they're looking at wave attenuation to help protect the structures they're putting in place. So seaweed is a big part of there. The artificial reefs as well they're looking at. Marine Management Organisation, MMO, obviously is the acronym there. They're very keen because why they license is they're concerned about the environmental impact of anything that happens in the oceans. We're doing the reverse of that. We're actually putting in a biosphere there, which is actually helping conservation rather than taking away from it. So MMO were quite keen to work with us with that one. Crown Estate again, so they do all the licensing. But yeah, again, because we're looking at marine conservation rather than a commercial farm, they're much more interested in that one. SAMS is the Scottish enterprise for seaweed. There's a lot of work being done up in Scotland at the moment on seaweed farms, harvesting, processing. CFAS is, again, it's a marine base at Weymouth. Yeah, again, as soon as we mention seaweed farming and environmental stuff together, very keen to have a look at that one. And then tying it with Professor Jason Hall-Spencer at Plymouth University. So we potentially have funding for a PhD student through Ramboll. Very much looking at seagrass and having the research carried out. So that's the wave marker buoys and things like that. So a lot of interest from various organisations with something that's quite unique. The technologies have been tried and tested. So someone has used kelp to protect the shores. We've had artificial reefs being created. We've had seagrass being planted, but no one as yet has brought all 3 together into a project. So the effect of putting sort of belt and braces on as well is going to be quite interesting to sort of see how that works. So yeah, so that's our sort of plan, and we would hope to be included as part of the sort of the beach management plan. I will stop sharing now.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Very, very intriguing and very interesting. Have we got any questioners on the subject? Yes, we have. Councillor Marianne Rixon.
I agree with you, Jeff. I think this is quite an intriguing project. It's interesting that it might help us with the combating the wave erosion, etc. I don't know what the comments are from Tom and people with more knowledge than me, but I believe as a product, kelp can be used in quite extensive ways. It can also be used, I think, to assist with ordinary agriculture in terms of enriching soil rather than using other noxious manufactured products. So I think there's quite potential here for the end result, and it also will provide, I think, habitat for sea creatures such as shellfish, I believe, and other creatures too. So I think it's a really intriguing project.
Thank you. Next question I've got is Mary.
It's just a bit of clarification, please. You said 40% reduction in wave activity. Is that wave height, wave force, all of it, or what?
Could someone come back on that one?
Well, it's basically the wave energy, isn't it? And the column of water underneath, which is seen to be reduced by 30 to 50%. This is modeling from Maine University in America. That's what their modeling actually comes up with. So it's basically the old column of water as rather than the waves itself.
Does that answer your question, Mary? Or
No, but I think that's because of my stupidity rather than anything else.
yeah, I think we need to look at some further studies on it to see the what it affects from that location. Next question that I've got is Councillor John Loudon.
2 points, Jeff. The first follows on from this thread that's just been talked about the waves. Just remember, we've got surfers who have grown exponentially in their use of Sidmouth's beach, and so just putting that point there. So, a colleague from Ebb Tide said, you said right at the very end, look forward to wanting or trying to be part of the process that we're now trying to take forward at pace. So how do, Jeff, I suppose the question to you or to Tom is, how do we evaluate this? How do we include this? How do we look at this being part of the process, or does it sit alongside? Is it completely separate? Is it a bit pie in the sky? I don't know. I'm just trying to understand how those colleagues from Ebb Tides now link into everybody else's faces I can see on the screen.
So I'll answer your first question on the surfers, being one myself. We tend to surf in front of the Bedford. We don't surf over that side of the cliffs.
You don't want to stop yourself surfing there, do you?
No, or Jacob's Ladder. So, and also the sailing club had the same issue. So basically, where we've sighted over that side, it's away from where they would put the sausage in the triangle out for sailing. So they were quite happy that we are over that side. We've also engaged some of the fishermen as well. It's not an area that they tend to fish from. They tend to sort of head out towards Beer or to the other side where the kelp beds are for fishing.
Thank you for that. And next question I've got from
hang on, Jeff. You didn't answer my question. I just said how if and how would Ebb Tides be part and parcel of this project?
Tom,
what's the next steps?
Yeah, do you want to answer that one, Tom?
I can do with the vague answer of it's a bit of an unknown at the moment. I mean, I do think it's really important that both projects are aware of each other's projects, and it's just whether or not we work hand in hand together, or we just work knowing that the other project is going on. So obviously, if there are benefits to our scheme through wave energy reduction, that would be fantastic, and I'm sure Atkins and Keir would like to know more about it going forward. But I think it's just it's early days between any interaction, and I guess the other thing to bear in mind is from a flood and coastal risk perspective, I don't believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, this technology has not been tested, proven, whereas traditional techniques such as offshore rock islands, beach recharge, and the rest have been. So being able to adapt our scheme to include more of this might be tricky. So I think some distance between both both schemes needs to be kept, but clearly if there's benefits to either party, they need to be worked on, and potentially there is an opportunity for some improvement in Sidmouth.
I'd like to just come back on the traditional technique. So it's the kelp beds that are the traditional technique, but they've been eroded with coastal activity. So that's the natural. It's called soft engineering. So Environmental Agency are very much aware of it at the moment, and it's one of the things they're pushing. That actually, in combination with traditional hard engineering, it's a lovely solution to have. So yeah, I mean, if Kia want to have a chat about how they can offset some of their carbon, we'd be more than happy to.
Can I, Jeff, sorry to jump the queue, can I just elaborate? I know Sam's got his hand up, but on Councillor Loudon's question. So I come from a marine sciences background, and I'm fascinated with this proposal, and I'm really keen, as we discussed in the project board meeting, to do anything we can through this scheme to improve or reduce our carbon impacts, improve biodiversity, those sorts of things. So this is really interesting. But I think what Councillor Loudon was getting at, which we perhaps haven't heard from Ebbtides, is what your specific ask is. So, being included in the project and part of the steering group, I think we could probably accommodate and find out more about you as we go. But are you looking to be associated with the project, proof of concept by association, or are you looking for funding as part of that project? Is there a specific ask, please?
Yeah, I think we are looking at funding. So it would be nice to be included as part of the whole management. We're talking about sort of the modelling aspect of this and how reducing wave activity would help the beach management plan long term going forward. But obviously we need the funding to be able to put the ropes in the water and to be able to carry out the activities that we want to carry out. The lovely thing is actually there'll be a lot of work with Plymouth University and PhD students. So they were quite excited when we sort of came up with this concept of bringing these schemes together, which can then also be lovingly transported to other areas. So like Dawlish Warren would benefit from having something that would reduce wave activity going into the Warren in case there's a storm surge, or other parts of the coast as well. So it's an offshore soft coastal sort of engineering solution.
Thank you for that clarification. I'd like to bring in Sam Skimmon now, if you can come in now. Thank you.
Hi, thanks very much. Just confirm something for me in case I didn't misinterpret the images. But it would be you're proposing the position of the ropes and the kelp to be in front of on the eastern side, in front of East Cliff, that sort of area of Sidmouth. Was that right? Is that what I saw?
Yep, so it's on the eastern side of the town, because obviously you've got all the rock groins protect the other side of the town, but it's that eastern side we're looking at reducing the wave activity coming into the cliffs there, and also the River Sid as well.
Okay. So it's interesting. I mean, I should point out that that's quite a concern then from the point of view of management of the World Heritage Site. At the moment, it goes against policy to affect natural processes in the setting of the site, and there's been other examples where disruption of wave energy has been a problem. So I think if it's going to be incorporated into the project, that needs to be considered very carefully in terms of what the outline design on East Cliff, which is very targeted, is aiming to produce, and what something which is much more offshore reducing wave energy might achieve. And maybe it'd be good for us to have a chat out of the side of this meeting about it, and I can give you a bit of a debrief on the World Heritage Site and things like that. So it's not necessarily a problem, but it needs to be thought of very carefully if it's going to be incorporated into it, because I'm wary of doubling up reduction of wave energy in the interface between the sea and the cliff face on East Beach, and what we're trying to retain there in terms of the stratigraphic exposures, and then further reduction of wave energy, which may create a designed beach which is achieving more than it's meant to, if you see what I mean. Anyway, that's just some thoughts off the top of my head.
Yeah, and obviously we're looking at a natural solution. I mean, it's putting back the kelp beds that used to be there essentially. So the whole of the coast used to be kelp beds, and that's what would have protected the sort of the coast naturally. But obviously with erosion, that's all been taken away. But yeah, it'd be good to catch up and have a chat about how the erosion at East Beach actually happens. But yeah.
Thank you for that. Next question I've got from Tony Birch.
Thanks, Chairman. On the funding side of things, I just wondered how the idea is being used as a coastal protection or coastal defence element, and whether or not there's been any research regarding its effectiveness in attenuating wave energy. and also the opportunity for the DEFRA Innovation Fund. They've got a DEFRA Coastal Risk Management have got an innovation fund, and they were looking for projects a few years ago, and just wonder if if this is being linked together through these various initiatives or not. Because clearly in this case, if it's effective in helping to manage the coast from a coastal defence point of view, and it improves biodiversity, etc., then clearly it's got a lot of benefits, and clearly it could be part of the innovation projects for DEFRA. And has there been any progress made in that regard and the links?
Yeah, so on the links, one of the links we had was the EA, which goes to the coastal protection plans. There was a big pot of money, I think it was £8 million worth of funding put into coastal projects. And it's this idea of soft engineering again. So so seaweed being used to sort of defend the coast. The big one for us would have been the West Sussex one. So that rewilding that's been going on, so protecting from Selsey through to I think it was like Bognor Regis. Actually, they're rewilding a large section of the beds there, and obviously that whole section of West Sussex is very flat. It's quite subject to flooding, so it's about reducing the activity into that sort of coastline. And one of the big things is increasing biodiversity. And essentially, they stopped trawling inshore to help regenerate the kelp.
So bearing in mind that this project now needs to be on a fast track, there's quite a lot of background data available regarding the effectiveness of this as a coastal risk management.
Yeah, I sent some papers through to the AA before that we got through sort of several research institutions where they've looked at wave activity being reduced by particularly the heavy seaweeds, not so much the lighter ones. So seagrass isn't that fantastic at reducing wave activity. It's a very small seaweed. The big kelps, if you get them up to 3 meters, and they really do reduce wave activity. Okay. So there's a lot of work being done on that.
And my final point, though, is that if you are linked into this, then there may be an opportunity to get some grant from DEFRA. If this is included in this project in some way, it could be used as a pilot to consider its effectiveness in reducing wave energy.
Yeah, I mean, the whole grant process is there. But once we've got the position of it, we can then start to say, actually, we can then start applying for the grants, but we need to have the idea of how this fits in with the beach management plan. And if you're happy to go ahead with it, then we can start applying with the Marine Management Organisation for the location. And we can start our applications for that then. And as soon as we've got the applications, then we can then start chasing funding. And there is a lot of funding for green projects at the moment.
Yeah. And one final point, if I may, Chairman, is on Sam's point about natural coastal processes being there. They don't want those interrupted. But your point, ebb tides, that there were kelp beds offshore, so natural processes may have been affected by kelp beds offshore, just in the same way that the hard defences of Sidmouth have affected coastal processes. So it's an interesting topic, I think, as to whether or not coastal processes are natural in this location at the moment.
It's a lovely phrase called rewilding that's been bandied around quite a lot at the moment.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you for that. I've got 2 engineers now who would like to come in. Who shall I take first? Richard first.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not from an engineering point of view, really. I just wanted the seagrass part. Are you suggesting that you'd have the seagrass bed at the same location, or would the kelp bed overtake that? And then secondly, securing your wires or what you're hanging it from, how do you stop what that's being moored to destroying the seagrass? I know we've done a project on moorings and seagrass and didn't necessarily find the answer with the Seagrass Institute. I didn't know if you had a good idea, really.
It's about when you put in your figures for maximum wave height, energy, and basically they come back and say what size of weight you need to keep that buoy in location. So particularly on the 4 corners that have to go through MMO, there's a whole series of calculations that sort of say what weight you need to keep that mooring in position, because what you don't want is your buoy disappearing or moving off.
Yeah, I thought if it's in a tidal range, it's more that it's what's attached to the buoy that destroys your habitat. Is that
Yeah, I
because
mean,
your
they're
mooring's obviously got to be higher?
yeah, I mean they're at the corners. The seagrass is low down, so the seagrass will be in the sort of the bottom meter, whereas obviously the moorings that we are talking about are at 15 meters. So you've got quite a big gap between the two.
But what do you secure the mooring to then?
So it's normally chains and ropes.
To the seabed?
Yeah, so it'd be weights going down. One of the current ones we were talking about is old train wheels were being used, so the iron wheels. Once they're cleaned and everything else, they're quite good to sort of drop down apparently, and quite a cheap option rather than having concrete.
Yeah, I think it's the area. I mean, what sort of centres do you have moorings then?
Yeah, I mean, it's the weight going down, but the seagrass, to be honest, would be put pretty much close to the initial artificial reef because it's the combination of reef and seagrass. If you just plant seagrass in the middle of nowhere, then when you get the storms, it takes it all out. So it's the combination of reef, seagrass. Even when the weights go down, actually they will act as a mooring point for some of the seagrass because it will quite happily gather around the weights as well.
Okay, good. That sounds interesting.
Next engineer on the list is Adrian.
Actually, we have for the last year or so, we have been helping to provide sinker blocks to the Ocean Conservation Trust for their Blue Meadows initiative at Torbay. So we produced a lot last year using waste concrete from our scheme at Lower Otter, actually, to protect the existing seabeds there. So this is something we're kind of familiar with. I know Kia have, or I have heard for years, or the last couple of years, that we have been investigating seagrass as a carbon offsetting option. So I would be really keen if we make sure we exchange details after the call. If perhaps Tom could forward them on, I'll make sure our environmental team have got them, because it seems like a really interesting local scheme that we could and probably should be involved in. And we can also help with those links into the EA to their innovation fund team. We sit in the community of practice working group for the innovation side of it. I think Andy might even be on it, Andy Yetton. So we can, yeah, it's something interesting that we'd like to be involved in, perhaps. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Sounds like there's some interest from the engineers. So next question is from Andrew. You're on.
Yep, I'm muted now. Sorry. Yeah, really, just to back up with Adrian saying, this is something we've been watching for a while now. So really, very keen to talk to you. Not only for this project, to see if there's any other opportunities in the Southwest. So again, if we could exchange details, it'd be good to catch up. And we're all very local here. Let's have a conversation and see what everything's about. It'd be good. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Have we got any more questions on this one? If not, we'll move on to item 7, proposed next meeting time. Over to you, Tom.
Chair, sorry, I can't raise my hand because I'm a presenter. It was more I guess regarding funding and opportunity is yes, obviously we need to keep our scheme moving forward, so can't be too distracted. But should there be an opportunity, especially for additional funding, as was obviously mentioned by Ebtide, there are funding opportunities, and since 2019, we've applied for one, were unsuccessful regarding using low carbon techniques for the coast. So should the Environment Agency have a similar one in due course, there would be no harm in applying. Typically, they have to come from a local authority or environment agency, but it would make sense to work together to see if there is funding to help develop this. But obviously, don't want to jeopardise progress with the main beach management scheme. But yeah, clearly, just making sure everyone's aware of each other's projects. Thank you.
You're on mute, Jeff.
How did that happen? Yeah, can we now move on to item 7? Back to you, Tom.
Yep, just showing my screen again. I mean, the last few slides, you'll be pleased to know. Hopefully, again, you can see that.
Yep, that's it, Tom.
So, simple slide. If it Actually, there we go. Everything's on the go slow. So I appreciate our last meeting we had as a group was actually March, so almost a year ago, 10 months ago. I'm keen, assuming all being well, that we should have progress going forward. So we've obviously haven't got a program because we've not really asked. Atkins and Keir haven't engaged that long to help with that, but it would make sense to have another meeting, perhaps in late summer 2024, just to provide an update of where we've got to. I don't want to go another year without a meeting, but clearly there needs to be enough content to talk about. So I was proposing a meeting around there, which we'll find a date near the time. In the meantime, we can provide any updates by email. And I guess the critical thing as well going forward is any public consultation periods. Just knowing roughly where they're going to be. We're very early days with looking at the ongoing program, but just to reassure everyone, we are looking at it and making sure that a full and proper public consultation will be put out with the proposals that Atkins and Keir will help design going forward.
I've got two hands up. First of all, Councillor John Loudon. Over to you, John. You're on mute.
Hello. Sorry. The last bullet point, Tom, about public consultation. So if we're meeting in sometime in the summer, which could be July through to August, without being very specific, what's the sort of idea in your mind as to when we might be looking at some form of public consultation? And I'm not holding you to this.
Yeah. I honestly don't know. I think that's something the project board needs to discuss on when's the best time to do that. Obviously too early, everything becomes, there's too many options available. And obviously too late, it's too late. So unfortunately the answer is I don't know. And until we have moved forward with the proposal and we can sit down and look at the outline program, yeah, we'll be able to update you. So I'm sorry, that's not a great answer, but it's the yeah.
No, well, if I may, Jeff, if I can come follow on from that and just say, look, it would, whenever we're going to do it, can we look at least? Sorry, my printer suddenly kicked into life. Can we look at giving people a good couple of months' notice so there's good lead-in time? That's all I would ask you do. Is factor that into whatever timescales you're looking at.
Yes, I'll make sure that we give plenty of notice. Next hand up is Robin Goodman.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted clarification on whether that meeting would coincide with the draft scope being updated, or would that happen sooner than that? And if the draft scope is going to be updated, would we have a further consultation via email like we did with the last issue?
Yes, good question. Yes, we would, once we have an updated scope, we would circulate that around the group as before to check that we are in broad agreement with it. Yes, I don't think having a meeting for such a document would be prudent as in our advisory group meeting. So yeah, sending it out via email to make sure everything's been picked up would be the best course of action. Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. And one more question I've got from Paul Gould.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The same question actually about the timescale. Sometime, presumably end of March, beginning April, we will have a reasonable idea of what the timescale is going to be in the future, and it would be very good to see that, please.
Yes, certainly. Once we know, an outline program subject to entering contract and all the rest, we'll circulate that via email to the group. Yeah.
Thank you, Tom, for that. And one more question is from Tony. Back to you, Tony.
Yeah, just on that, Scott, clarification again, Tom. I think the key element on this, on the critical path, is finalising the scope. Everything stems out of that. So I just wonder what the timetable is for moving from the draft scope that we produced to finalising it and then consulting on it. So when do we hope to liaise with Atkins and finish the draft scope?
I'd say it's a work in
2 months.
Work in progress. Yeah, it would be about that. Yeah, a few months.
Okay.
I for various reasons, I've been busy with other projects, and
Yeah,
us Atkins and Kira on other projects, so we've not actually caught up recently to see where we are. And I don't want to hold them to a date at the moment, but it is it is a big priority, not just for East Devon, but certainly for Kira and Atkins. So
moving from the draft to a final scope is on the critical path now, isn't it? Really?
Yes.
And I'm sure those who helped before are willing to help again.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Got no more questions on that. So we move on to any other business. Have we got any other business? Any hands up? Tony, is that an old hand?
That was my old hand, yeah.
Right, okay. Have we got any other business that we need to discuss before we close? And we don't seem to have got any questions. So that brings our meeting to an end. And I would like to thank everyone, including any members of the public watching online, for taking part. However, can I just remind all those present that the supporting officer will confirm when the meeting is no longer being recorded or going live. And